Hi, it's Gwen, and today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about color, particularly with the Thoth Tarot. It's such a beautiful deck, but as we know, the colors in the deck they were chosen quite specifically, not just because they're beautiful, but because they all have a particular meaning. And there are actually several layers even to that. The one that I want to look at today is the correspondence in some of the Thoth tarot cards with the colors that you find on the Tree of Life. One of the ways that I learned about the Sephiroth and what happens in each one is by associating each Sephiroth with a color and a planet, because those associations make sense to me. I didn't make these up. I don't want it to sound like I made these up. This is the system for the Tree of Life, and these colors are associated with each of the Sephiroth and with, in this case, the Roman god pantheon. And what's interesting is that you apparently can choose whatever pantheon is most meaningful to you, and it will fit. It makes a lot of sense to me. I have a lot of experience with Tibetan Buddhism, and I'm always finding that Netzach, for example, fits very well with Green Terra. So you have correspondences across systems as well. But particularly when you're looking at just the colors of the Sephiroth, sometimes there are clues to what kind of energy is in the cards looking at those colors. So yesterday we were looking at the Two of Cups. So I'd like to start there. And we noticed that you have blue at the top and yellow in the middle and green at the bottom. And of course, blue and yellow make green. But if we look at the Tree of Life, we can find out a little bit more about what's happening. What is the meaning of that association? Why are those cards there? And you find that blue is associated with the fourth Sephira, Chesed, and yellow is associated with the sixth Sephira, Tiferet. And if you look at, so we can, first of all, you can stop there and you can just say, okay, well, so there's some energy of Chesed, and there's some energy of Tiferet, and we know that Chesed is about generosity and loving kindness. Tiferet is about beauty, being a perfect balance. And so we have those energies. We have the energy of Jupiter, and we have the energy of the Sun. Now, if you look at the Tree of Life, something that's really interesting with this particular card is that you notice that the colors are all coordinated as you move down the Tree of Life. So bear in mind Tiferet in the middle. So if you look at Chesed and the blue, then move to Tiferet in the middle, and then go over again to the right, you get green. So blue and yellow is green. And it works on the other side as well. If you start in Gevurah, which is red, and you go to Tiferet, which is yellow, and then back over to the left, you have orange, which is a combination of red and yellow. Well, what about Yesod? Yesod is purple. Well, how do you get purple? Purple is red and blue. So you can look back up a little bit further at the top and you see that a triangle is formed between Gevurah and Chesed and Yesod. And so there are no direct paths that connect those Sephiroth, but there is definitely an energy connection going on there, so you can think about what that might mean. So we have this card for blue, yellow, and green. So let's look at another one. Staying in the same Sephira at the top in Chokmah, we have the Two of Discs. So one thing you always have to bear in mind is that, again, all the colors were very carefully chosen. And so, the purples and the blues in this card and the gold, they all mean something. There's color scales. There are 4 color scales, and you can look those up and find out why Lady Frida Harris and Aleister Crowley chose these colors. But even within that system, I think we can find some very interesting references. You don't have to know about the color scales to find meaning within the color. And in this case, look at the 2 yin-yang symbols. So the top one is green and yellow. So we can see on the Tree of Life that associates us with Netzach and Tiferet. And what connects those two is the transformational path of the Death card. So we can see that as something we can apply to a card called Change, as death and transformation. And the other card, the other yin yang down there is purple and yellow. So looking back on the tree of life, we can see that corresponds, those colors correspond to Yesod and Tiferet. Now, what path connects those two cards? And you can see that it's the art card. Again, you have a card of transformation and alchemy. We think of art as being a slightly less traumatic card than the death card, but it is very similar in meaning. So we can look at both of those major arcana in connection with the Two of Discs and change and find, you can see how vast this card is when you start expanding out like that. So here's another one, Eight of Swords. And the colors here predominantly are purple and red. When you place this card on the Tree of Life, you find yourself in Hod, which is orange. Because this is an 8, and all the 8s belong in the 8th Sephirah, which is Hod. And there's no orange on this card. But if you look above Hod, you see Gevurah is red, and there is red in this card. And just to the right of Hod, you find Yesod, which is purple. So what you can look at those two Sephiroth and see if they affect the 8, they affect the 8 of Swords. Maybe they help you figure out what the 8 of Swords means in a particular situation. And you can also look at the major arcana that connect them all. So if you have a look at the Tree of Life above me, have a look at the major arcana that connect these Sephiroth, starting in Hod, going up to Gevurah, and starting in Hod again, and going to Yesod. And how might those major arcana affect your interpretation of this card? One more minor arcana. This is the Three of Swords. And, you know, I do kind of like this card because green is my favorite color, and it's a lot of green. So why is there green here? Well, the threes belong in the 3rd Sephirah, top left, which is Bina. Bina is associated with the divine feminine, but it's ruled by Saturn, and so the color is usually black. The color of the Sephirah is usually black, and you can see that there's some black in there. And the image of Bina is a dark sea from which everything emerges. So why green? Well, the green, as you remember, is associated with Netzach, and Netzach is the 7th Sephirah, bottom right. And what this brings to our attention is what I call, and I'm sure I've read this somewhere, I'm sure I didn't make it up, but the feminine axis. So you have the higher feminine energy in Bina, and you have the lower, just in the relative sense, it's not bad, but it's more earthly, feminine of Netzach, associated with Venus, it's a mother-daughter relationship, it's a higher-lower relationship, you know, doing the right thing versus doing what you want, you know, which is really the best thing to do. So we have those color correspondences here. So what other colors do you see in this card? And what other Sephiroth, looking at the Tree of Life above me, what other Sephiroth do you think might help you figure out what's going on in this card? Okay, and finally, just for something a little different, we have the Fool, and there's a lot of different colors here, and so I just want to mention something very briefly about a different set of colors that you can use. But again, it's a very straightforward system of colors. This is the colors that are associated with the elements and therefore the suits. In this card, what I see is a lot of yellow. And when you're looking at color correspondences to the elements, yellow corresponds to air. So, and that makes a lot of sense with this card, with the Fool. The Fool is associated with air. If you look at the bottom of the card, you'll see that there is a Hebrew letter Aleph, and Aleph means air. And if you can see the glyph, the triangle there, and that is a symbol for air. So we have another system of color that you can use. And orange is also an important color. Each element actually has 2 colors. I'll look at that in a different video, but it's just so that you know that it's not only the Sephiroth, but you can also use the colors that you associate with the elements. So we have a lot of green here for the earth. We have blue for water. And we don't have, interestingly, we don't have a lot of red, but there's a little bit of red. And we have orange. Maybe that's for Hod. What do you think? Do you think that all the colors in this correspond to the elements? Or can you find